T-minus 362 days to returning the 5th District to the people of Oklahoma. Hi, welcome to Patriot Studios. I'm David Green, and this is the Green for Congress channel. In Part 1, I presented a piece of legislation to you to bring Congress home. A plan to have your legislators closer to you than to 100,000 lobbyists in the swamp. Here in Part 2, I'm going to introduce you to Shackling the Deep State. The Federal Register, our federal law, has grown to massive proportions. It covers everything from the tax code to Medicare and Medicaid, which a misstep in any of those areas could cost you your life savings, or even your home. As the Federal Register grows, so grows government employees to administer the laws. This ever-blooming government is a burden on our economy and especially small business. But what happens if we reduce this government burden? Since President Trump mandated for every new regulation instituted we had to repeal two, we've experienced explosive economic growth. Listen to what Kevin O'Leary from the Shark Tank had to say about this.
You know, you have to differentiate, and my take on Trump and his cabinet is I don't watch the circus or the freak show, whatever you want to call it. I look at the policy. Mm-hmm. I'm a policy wonk. And I have this unique index I should share with you. I have interests in almost, it is over 50. It's over 50 private companies now, all in practically every state. Very few states we don't have interests in now. I get the monthly cash flows of every one of these businesses because most of my deal structures are royalties, as you know, or venture debt or preference shares or converts. And I have lots of covenants around cash flow. I have never in my life seen an economy like this. This is even better than the 60s. It is phenomenal. And I think primarily because of deregulation, not tax reform. My companies in California, in Texas, in Florida, in Illinois, at the municipal level and the state level have been set free.
All of this is great, but if we don't formalize a restraint of the Federal Registry and civil service employee numbers in law, then the next Obama to come along with a massive regulation creation or hiring spree can put the deep state back in full gear, stifling our economy, or worse. In order to protect the country from overregulation and ballooning federal employment, I will sponsor the Federal Registry and Employment for Economic Development Optimization Management Act, the Freedom Act. It will have two main restrictions on the federal government: place a cap on the total word count in the Federal Registry and establish a maximum number of civil service employees. Limiting government must be accomplished through law. It can never be sustained through administration. Listen to what Kimberley Strassel has to say at a Hillsdale College event.
So you take these two things, 2 million federal employees with sweeping discretion over what they can do, and limitless programs that are beyond the size of anything we've ever done, which are beyond accountability by those in charge. And then you add to this what I mentioned at the beginning, this partisan approach, this win at every cost. And you put that attitude at the top of these federal bureaucracies and you let it filter down through the administration. And of course you're going to get all the corruption just listed because they take their cue from the top. If Hillary Clinton can set up her own email server, why can't every federal employee talk off the grid? And by the way, they do. I have written more about government scandals than I care to admit. And one of the central features of every single one is a number of government employees that were hiding their communication from FOIA requests and from transparency, which, by the way, ought to be your first sign that something's going on, because if you're not willing to do what you do in the open, it's probably because you're doing something wrong. We still don't know, by the way, to this day, everything that Lois Lerner did at the IRS, and do you want to know why? Because we know from her email records that she went out of her way to conduct almost all of her internal conversations on a special IRS instant messaging system that she went and found out and made sure was not tracked by the federal government. There's a great email when she says, "Is any of this recorded?" Someone said no, and she said, "Perfect." Again, if the EPA is going to concoct an entire carbon regulation program outside of legislation. Why shouldn't every bureaucrat go beyond what's allowed by law? That's how you get officials issuing arbitrary regulations and fines. That's how you get 1,000 Justice Department officials that need remedial ethics training. And why you get entire units of the IRS that didn't even blink an eye when they received orders to target thousands of Americans on the basis of their political affiliation. Just think about that. Dozens of career IRS officials were involved in this scheme, and nobody blew the whistle for 4 years. They all thought it was an okay thing to do. So that's your swamp, people. We've now defined the problem.
The first thing the Freedom Act will do is cap the word count of the federal registry. This will prevent future presidents and Congresses from adding laws unless they repeal other laws. This will force an in-depth analysis, a critical examination, and debate to any new laws. In the meantime, the American people will be free from the shackles of government to prosper. The next thing the Freedom Act will do is limit the number of federal employees. This is critical in keeping administrative offices lean and focused on the purpose they were chartered for. As Kimberley Strassel said, the less people with less regulation will result in less corruption. Keeping regulations restricted and employment reduced, the deep state will diminish until it completely disappears. We don't need any more Peter Strzok's, Lisa Page's, or Hillary Clinton pushing a socialist agenda trying to manipulate election outcomes and weakening our country. I will stand firmly for government reform and the end of the deep state. Bottom line is, professional and socialist politicians like Kendra Horn that revel in the intoxicating elixir of centralized power must be limited. In order to maintain a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, we must drain the swamp. We must sponsor and pass the Freedom Act. I have the plan to get it done. Join my Keep America Free campaign. I will fight and defeat Kendra Horn and return the 5th District to the people of Oklahoma. This is David Green from Patriot Studios. We've got a lot to do with a year to get it done. Let's get busy.